Okay, today we're going to take a look at planning permission. Most small DIY projects don't require plan permission because they're under a certain square meterage and they're temporary and what do they call that? Permitted developments. You can get away with a lot by that, but at some point a lot of folk come across the need to apply for plan permission, and anything with a reasonable size you're going to need plan permission. So this is my top 10 tips to help you get a successful planning application. Bearing in mind that when you go for plan permissions, or especially if you're going for housing or anything like that, you can increase the value of a plot massively. You know, you can go from a plot that's worth £10,000 to 100,000 if it's got plan permission for housing on it. So you're not going to expect it to be easy. But this is my top 10 tips to help you get the plan permission that you want. Okay, number one, don't ask the planning officer his opinion. Don't go in with your little drawing saying, I'm thinking of building a nice dome house here for me and my family, it's going to be an eco house. Don't do that. They'll just say no. It's not in their interests to give their opinion. They can't tell you if you'll get plan permission or not, but all it does is alert them to what you want to do. They can then put all the roadblocks in place. Oh, you haven't got this, or you haven't got that, and right off the bat they'll try and talk you out of it. Planning officers, as a general rule, are very, I'm trying to think of a polite way of putting it, by the book type people. They'll look at the regulations and say, oh no, you can't do that. So it's not going to, you're not going to help your case at all. So keep stum in the beginning. Okay, and next one's the most important, which is do your research. You need to read the plan guidelines, you need to read the planning regulations. It's a huge book normally, but if you dig into that and you look at all the regulations, you'll find, especially the planning guidelines, because that's updated every year, so you don't get such a thick book, and you can look at what the government want people to build. Basically, you can say, for example, let me think of some in the past. The one I used for my building was employment in the countryside, because there was a lack of employment in the countryside. So they say anybody wants to apply for plan permission for employment in the countryside, that becomes a priority. So if you know these regulations, you can then tailor what you ask to better suit what the guidelines say, and you've got a much better chance of getting. But you won't get anywhere unless you know the regulations and you know the permissions, so read up on them. The next one is do your own drawings if at all possible. If you can, I actually first started, I think it must be 11 or 12 years ago, I bought a computer package, a graphic package, and I did the very first job I did was for myself, doing my own plans. They don't have to be brilliant, but you can change the plans easier if you're doing it yourself. You can also, if you're willing to do a bit of work, do a nice graphic of how it's going to look on site. If you make nice graphics and things like that, that always helps. But I would recommend learning a CAD program yourself rather than paying somebody else to do it, because if you outsource that, it's maybe not such a bad thing, but every time you make a change, it's going to cost you money. So in the long run, it'll cost you a bit more money. Okay, now we're into the nitty gritty of the tricks of the trade. Number 4. Apply for something bigger or uglier than you actually want. Drop plans in. What I did here was I applied for, there was a metal existing shed and I applied to extend that shed to make a workshop 15 metres long. It was huge, and then that was passed because of the employment in the countryside thing, and then I applied for the dome, which was much smaller. So apply for something big, and then see how you get on. If you get turned down, they have to give reasons, so they can say, oh, this is not, it's too big, da da da. So then you apply for something smaller. But it's a trick of the trade. Large building firms very often apply for 12 houses on a plot, like ridiculously close, to see if they'll get it. And then when that's turned down, oh, it's the on-site traffic's too high. Then they apply for 8 houses to reduce it, and they get the plan permission. But the planners haven't realised that they're putting in plans for 8 houses on a site. If they put in 8, they would have probably had the same objections, and then they would have to build 6. So that's how you do it. Number 5, apply all at once, have all your documents together and whack them all in quickly. Don't go showing people this is what I've got planned. Make the official application on the first day that the planners see your plans. They have no idea what it's going to be until it lands on the desk, because the timer starts ticking from the second that application, pay for it and everything. They have a set time to deal with that. If you put in a lot of documentation that they've got to look through, and it's all on the desk, they have to get back to you in a certain time. And the issue I had with the parish council, it gives all the people who might complain that set time to complain. If you mess about and people get to see it and people make complaints first, then you'll never get anywhere. Next up is you can use the amendment system. I don't know if this is the same all over the world, but I have found that there's a lot of similarity in all countries. But in this country, you can apply for an amendment after you've got your plans. So you can say, I'd like a door there instead of at this side. I'd like that the parking change from here to this side. Things like that, small things. And the thing about an amendment is it doesn't have to go back to planning permission. You basically take it to the plan officer and you say, this is my reason, can I change this? And they basically sign it off if they agree. And there's nothing to stop you doing like 3 or 4 amendments. So I have seen buildings go from one stage to a totally unrecognisable stage from using building amendments. So use them wisely, don't be silly with them, but it's something that if you want to add on after and you think that addition would jeopardise your planning consent, leave it out and then try and get it in after on a what's it called again? Amendment. Oh yeah, I should have done this one before. This is number 7. Use existing buildings if you can. If you have anything on site, no matter how shabby, repair an old building so that it looks in better condition than it is, because at a certain point a building becomes just up for demolition. Whereas you can apply to restore or upgrade or anything like that a building. So and any brown site, any parking, any concrete that's down, it's easier to get plan permission on a concreted driveway than it is on a green field. Just bear all that in mind and try and be creative about what's existing on the site and what you can leverage from that. Number 8, be nice to your neighbours. A lot of the time you can get away with building a structure that requires plan permission but you haven't applied for. That is the most cost effective way. But it depends mostly on your neighbours. If your neighbours just hate your guts, the second that you put up something 2 inches above the height requirement, they're going to dob you into the council. So if you have a good relationship with your neighbours, you live in an out the way place, you do them favours, they do you favours, you're not going to get the hassle of a bigger city development that you're trying to achieve, because you don't know everybody and there's always somebody curtain twitching to see what you're doing. But if you're nice to your neighbours, it does help. Number 9, we're nearly there now. This one is, well, I shouldn't really be telling you this, but I'm going to push the rules a little bit. You can, I've done it myself, you can do your permissions thoroughly and properly, but you can go a little bit here and a little bit there. I mean, I've seen, the things I've seen are people have put in plan permission and they have made the building larger than the plans say. Did that myself, made this building 1/2 metre taller. So that's technically, is it technically illegal? I don't know. Push a bit, I'm saying, you can push it, don't take the mickey out of it, you know, but if you do push a little bit, you can very often get away with it. And finally, number 10, always be polite to the planners. You're not going to get anywhere if you go in shouting and bawling. I've been asked, I've had problems with plan permissions. What I'll do another video about how I got the plan permission for this dome, because it was a classic. I did everything, I followed the advice that I'm giving you now, which worked, but I did have some issues on the way. But when you do get issues, try and be as helpful as possible and polite as possible. If they say you've got to have the driveway in before your building's finished, and it's really inconvenient, don't go shouting at them. Just say, yes sir, no problems sir. What you do is up to yourself, but at least try and appear cooperative. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you get your plan permission if you need it. And like and subscribe if you thought it was any good, and I'll see you in the next one.